We went hiking because my friend needed distractions. His brother had died 2 weeks earlier in a car accident on a road he drove every day. The funeral had passed, the calls had slowed, and the silence had started to settle into his apartment. Sitting still made everything worse for him. Movement helped. Being outside helped. That was the thinking. We picked a trail close to town, one that families used, one with a wide path and signs every half mile. I had walked it before. It followed a ridge, dipped to a creek, then looped back toward the parking lot. Nothing remote, nothing risky, the kind of place where you expected joggers and people walking dogs. We started late, close to noon. That was already a mistake. Heat pressed down through the trees and sat there. The air felt thick, like breathing through cloth. Sweat soaked my shirt within minutes and stayed there. The dirt under our boots was dry and powdery, leaving clear prints. Cicadas buzzed in bursts, then stopped. Leaves barely moved. My friend walked with his head down, shoulders tight. His pace stayed steady but heavy, like each step cost effort. I kept checking him, not with words, just watching how he moved. He was thinner than the last time I had seen him. His arms looked loose, almost detached from the rest of him. We passed people during the first hour, a couple with trekking poles, 2 older women taking photos of a fallen tree, a guy jogging shirtless who smelled like sunscreen and sweat. Each time, the trail noise returned briefly, footsteps and breathing, then faded again. After about an hour, the trail bent slightly to the left. The trees thinned enough for sunlight to spill straight down. That was when we saw the man. He stood off the right side of the trail, maybe 6 feet back among the trees. He faced us. No backpack, no bottle, no hat. His shirt hung loose and dark with sweat. His pants were dirty at the cuffs. His feet were bare, planted on dry soil scattered with pine needles and small rocks. His posture stayed wrong. He leaned forward a little, shoulders rounded, arms hanging at his sides. His eyes were open wide, too wide, like he was forcing them that way. They stayed fixed on us as we approached. He did not shift his weight or move his head. I nodded out of habit. My friend kept walking without reacting. We passed him with a few feet between us. I smelled something sour, like old sweat and damp cloth. I felt his stare on my neck until we rounded the bend and he left my view. The trail noise came back for a moment, then dropped away again. No insects, no birds, just our steps and breathing. We kept moving. The heat worsened. Sweat ran down my back and pooled at my waistband. My friend's hands clenched and unclenched as he walked. His breathing grew shallow. 10 minutes later, I felt the quiet press in. It was not sudden. It slid in like something heavy settling. I turned around. The man stood on the trail behind us. He was closer than made sense. He stood in the center of the path, facing forward, head slightly tilted down, eyes still wide. The distance between us was maybe 30 yards. There were no signs of him walking, no sound, no disturbed dust. I slowed my pace without stopping. My friend noticed and matched it. Neither of us looked at each other. The man stayed where he was, not advancing, not retreating. We continued. The trail dipped and rose gently. Roots crossed the path. Rocks pressed through the dirt. Every few steps I looked back. Each time the man was closer. He never ran. He never changed speed that I could see. He simply occupied less space between us each time I checked. His posture never shifted. His arms stayed loose. His eyes stayed open. My friend's shoulders pulled tighter. His steps shortened. His breathing grew uneven. Sweat darkened his shirt completely now. His face looked pale beneath the flush. The forest stayed quiet. No wind, no movement. The sense of being watched pressed against my back. We reached the creek crossing faster than expected. The water ran shallow over smooth stones, clear enough to see pebbles on the bottom. The trail turned sharply downhill just before it, cutting away from the main loop toward a maintenance road farther down. We took that turn without hesitation. The slope was steep enough to force our weight forward. Loose gravel slid under our boots. I focused on my footing. Halfway down, I looked back. The man was gone. The trail behind us stood empty. Sunlight filtered through leaves. Dust hung still. No movement. No sound. We reached the creek and crossed quickly. Cold water soaked into my boots and cooled my feet. On the far side, the trail leveled out and widened. The maintenance road lay ahead, a strip of packed dirt and gravel that led back toward the parking lot. We did not slow down. We followed the road at a fast walk, then faster. The sun dropped lower, turning the light yellow. Long shadows stretched across the path. My legs felt heavy. My mouth tasted dry. The farther we went, the more I noticed small details. Scuffed patches in the dirt beside the road. Broken twigs pushed down instead of snapped. A faint footprint in dust that did not match ours. We reached the edge of the parking area just before dark. The lot was mostly empty. A few cars sat scattered near the entrance. The air felt cooler, but the tension stayed. My car sat near the tree line. As we got closer, something on the ground caught my eye. Footprints circled the driver's side. They were fresh, clear impressions pressed into the dust and fine gravel. Bare feet, adult-sized, toes spread slightly, heels dug in deeper than the front, like the person had stood still and shifted weight. They did not match mine. They did not match my friends. Our boots left sharp tread marks, deep and defined. These prints were smooth, edges soft, still holding shape. The prints led from the tree line to my door. They stopped there. No prints led away. I scanned the lot. No movement. No cars pulling in. No sound beyond distant traffic from the road below. The explanation formed slowly, piece by piece, fitting into place with sick clarity. The man had not followed us along the trail the way it felt. He had cut ahead through the woods. He knew the area. He knew the shortcuts. Bare feet meant nothing to someone used to moving through forest floor. The silence made sense. He moved when we did not look. He waited when we did. The trail was popular, but the side paths were not. The maintenance road gave direct access to the lot. He had reached it first and waited. We did not see him because he did not want to be seen anymore. We got into the car and left. I checked the mirrors the entire drive home. Nothing followed us. Later, I reported the incident to the park office. They told me about a man who lived in the woods nearby, someone who avoided shelters, someone who watched people. They said he had been warned before. They said they would look into it. The footprints stayed with me longer than the man's face. They were proof of intent, of planning, of time spent waiting close enough to touch my car. Nothing supernatural explained them. Nothing comforting softened them. We went hiking to escape grief for a few hours. We brought it back with us, heavier than before, tied to a place that was supposed to be safe. I went hiking to prove to myself I wasn't stuck anymore. That was the honest reason. I had quit a warehouse job I hated without another one lined up and spent the next few weeks sleeping in the back of my car, moving between rest stops and grocery store lots. I told myself it was temporary. I told myself it was freedom. Most mornings it just felt like waiting. The Blue Ridge felt like a safe choice. I had grown up seeing photos of it. Rolling mountains, wide trails, clear signage. Popular enough that help was never far. I wasn't trying to disappear. I just needed a day that felt like I chose it. I planned a simple out-and-back hike. One trail. A few hours in, a few hours out. Nothing remote. Nothing risky. I parked at a gravel lot just after 7:30 in the morning. Mist hung low between the trees, thin enough to see through but thick enough to hold the cold. The air smelled wet and sharp, like old leaves and dark soil. My breath showed when I stepped out of the car. The lot held two other vehicles, both quiet, no signs of movement. The trailhead sign stood just beyond the lot. The wood was gray and worn, edges soft from years of weather, but the lettering was still readable. I remember taking a photo of it with my phone. I didn't think about why at the time. It felt automatic, like proof that I had started something. The trail itself was wide and clear. Packed dirt, scattered roots, a gentle climb. Leaves covered most of it, but the path was obvious. Trail markers appeared every so often, nailed to trees at eye level. Same color, same shape. Everything looked right. The first hour passed easily. My legs loosened up. My breathing settled. The forest woke slowly around me. A few birds moved through the canopy. Somewhere off to the left, water ran over rock. I passed one couple heading back down, boots muddy, faces relaxed. That helped. It made the place feel used and watched. About 2 hours in, something shifted. It was subtle. The trail curved more than I expected. Not sharply, just enough that the slope fell away on one side where I thought it should rise. I checked the next marker. Same color, same shape, same reflective paint. The arrow pointed forward, but slightly off-center, angled a few degrees to the right. I shrugged it off and kept walking. A little farther on, another marker pointed the same way. Again, not wrong enough to feel wrong. Just enough to guide my feet without asking questions. The path narrowed. Leaves grew thicker underfoot. The dirt felt softer, less packed. The forest grew quieter as I moved. Not suddenly, gradually. Bird sounds thinned out, then stopped. Wind that had brushed the tops of the trees no longer reached the ground. My footsteps sounded loud, muffled by damp leaves. I kept feeling like I was walking behind something, not seeing it, just missing it. Like if I had rounded a bend a few seconds earlier, I would have caught someone stepping off the trail. That feeling stayed just out of reach, never turning into a clear thought. I checked my phone. No service, which I expected. The time looked normal. Late morning. I drank some water and kept going. The trail markers appeared more often now, but something about them felt off. Some were newer than others. Some nails were bright, others rusted. One marker sat lower than the rest, close to shoulder height instead of above it. Another leaned slightly, as if it had been hurriedly placed. Then I saw one nailed upside down. The arrow pointed back the way I had come. That stopped me cold. Trail crews don't do that. Even mistakes follow patterns. An upside-down marker isn't an error. It's a choice. I stood there for a long moment, listening. The forest did not answer. No birds returned. No distant voices. Just the faint sound of my own breathing and the soft creak of trees shifting somewhere higher up. I turned around. The trail behind me was gone. Not covered by leaves. Not overgrown. Gone. Where the path should have been, there was only forest floor. Trees stood close together, trunks unmarked. The ground was uneven, untouched, layered with old leaves and small plants that do not grow where people walk often. I stepped forward, expecting to feel the packed dirt again. My boots sank slightly instead, soft earth giving way under my weight. I backed up and turned slowly, scanning side to side. No clear line, no cut branches, no sign of a trail. Panic tried to rush in all at once. I forced it down. Trails don't vanish. People get turned around. That happens. I told myself to stay calm and retrace my steps. I walked in what I thought was the direction I came from. The ground stayed soft. Leaves brushed my ankles. Small branches caught at my pants. My boots started to pick up mud. I walked longer than expected. I checked my phone again. Still no service. The time showed early afternoon. That made sense, but it didn't feel right. My legs already felt heavier than they should have. I adjusted my direction, angling downhill the way the trail had climbed earlier. The forest did not open, stayed dense and quiet. I passed more trees with markers, but they were inconsistent now. Some pointed left, some right. One had been pulled loose and hung crooked by a single nail. I realized then that someone had moved them, not all at once, over time, slowly enough that the changes felt natural. I walked for hours. At least it felt like hours. The light shifted, sliding lower through the trees. My calves burned. My boots scraped against rocks hidden under leaves, tearing at the sides. At some point, I tripped and went down hard, skinning my shin. Blood ran warm into my sock. The ground never firmed up. Everywhere I stepped felt like it hadn't been walked on before. No compacted soil, no clear edges, just forest swallowing direction. Near sunset, the trees thinned. I stepped out onto packed dirt. The trail lay in front of me, wide and familiar. The same gentle curve, the same worn roots, the same marker nailed straight and clean to a tree. I followed it downhill in a daze. The gravel lot came into view. My car sat exactly where I left it. The other vehicles were gone. I leaned against the door and looked at my phone. The photo of the trailhead sign was still there. The timestamp showed I had been gone just over 3 hours. I stared at that number until it stopped making sense. My boots were shredded along the sides, fabric torn, rubber peeled back. My legs were scratched and bleeding in places I didn't remember hitting. My arms ached. My throat felt raw from breathing hard for so long. Later, after I cleaned myself up and slept somewhere with lights and people nearby, I looked into it. The explanation wasn't comforting, but it was real. That section of the Blue Ridge had been dealing with unauthorized trail modifications. Locals rerouting paths to protect hunting spots. People creating false loops to push hikers away from private land. Old logging survey markers mixed with official ones. In wet seasons, leaf cover hides compacted soil fast, making trails disappear if you step off them. Stress does strange things to time perception. Panic stretches minutes. Focus collapses hours. My phone didn't lie. My body did. Someone had moved the markers. Slowly, carefully, enough to guide without alerting. Enough to turn a safe, popular trail into a maze if you trusted it too much. I wanted to prove I wasn't stuck anymore. I learned instead how easy it is to be guided without realizing it, and how quickly a familiar place can become something else when you stop questioning it. I haven't taken a photo of a trailhead since without checking it twice. We chose the hike because it was supposed to be familiar. That was the whole reason. My friend had done it before more than once. He described it casually, like a place you don't need to think about. Same trail, same summit, same views every time. A safe choice for a long weekend when neither of us wanted surprises. We parked at the same turnout he remembered. The sign matched the name he said, at least at first glance. The trailhead sat where it should have, cutting into a slope of pine and rock. Nothing about it looked strange. Weather was clear. Late afternoon light, but plenty of time to reach the top and come back down. The first stretch felt normal. Packed dirt, steady grade, switchbacks that eased the climb. My friend walked ahead, relaxed, pointing out where the trail would flatten soon, where the trees would thin. He sounded sure. That confidence kept me calm. Then things started to drift. The switchbacks grew steeper than he remembered. He mentioned it once, brushing it off as being out of shape. The turns tightened. The dirt gave way to darker rock, almost black in places, with sharp edges that caught the light differently. The trail markers were there, but spaced farther apart. The air cooled faster than expected. Wind slid downslope, steady and cold, like it was draining out of something higher. We climbed in silence for a while. My breathing grew louder. The forest thinned earlier than it should have. Trees fell away into scrub and broken stone. The sky above us looked wider, paler. My friend slowed. He checked his watch. The timing felt off. We should have been closer to the summit already. The climb felt longer, heavier, like the mountain had more mass than it should. The switchbacks kept going. When we finally broke above the last rise, the summit marker stood alone on a flattened patch of rock. A metal post set in concrete. A small plaque bolted to the top. We reached it just before sunset, the light turning low and sharp. The plaque listed the elevation. It was wrong, not by a little, off by hundreds of feet from what my friend remembered and what the map on his phone showed for that trail. He stared at it longer than made sense, then checked his phone again. No signal, just cached maps and a blank compass. The view unsettled me more than the number. The valley below did not match the map. The shapes were wrong. The ridgelines bent in unfamiliar ways. A river cut through at an angle that didn't line up with anything I recognized. The road that should have been visible wasn't there. The sun sank behind a ridge that should have been to the south, not straight ahead. The light faded fast. The temperature dropped another notch. Wind picked up, cutting across the summit hard enough to make us brace. We did not stay. The descent felt rushed from the first step. Not panicked, but tight, focused. The trail down seemed to fall away beneath us, steeper than the climb had been. Switchbacks blurred together. We moved fast, careful but urgent. Too fast. We reached the tree line quickly, faster than felt possible. The air warmed. The wind died down. The rocks lightened back to gray and brown. Dirt replaced stone. My legs shook from the speed. When the parking lot came into view, it surprised both of us. The descent had taken less than half the time of the climb. We stood there, breathing hard, staring at the sign near the trailhead. The name was different, not a variation, not a secondary label, a completely different trail name, one neither of us recognized. The layout map showed a route that did not match what we had just walked. The elevation profile was wrong. The summit listed was lower, broader, nowhere near what we had seen. My friend went quiet. He stared at the sign, then back up the trail. His face tightened in a way I had not seen before. He shook his head slowly. Later, after we drove home, after the adrenaline drained and the day settled into memory, he told me he had never been there before. Not that trail, not that mountain. He said he must have mixed it up with another hike. He said the description he gave me fit a place farther north. He sounded embarrassed, almost defensive. I believed him, but the details did not line up. I had taken a photo at the summit. Not of us, just the marker and the view behind it. The image stayed clear on my phone. The plaque text readable. The angle of the valley sharp and distinct. I spent weeks trying to find that mountain. Compared maps. I checked trail databases. I looked through old hiking forums and archived guidebooks. I matched ridgelines and river bends. Nothing fit. The elevation number did not correspond to any known summit in the area. The trail name on the photo did not exist in any registry. The explanation came slowly, grounded in human error and bureaucracy, not anything unreal. We had started on a decommissioned trail. The familiar sign at the turnout had been old, left in place after a reroute years earlier. Maintenance had shifted the official trailhead farther down the road. The map online had been updated, but cached versions still floated around. The lower section we walked matched the old route closely enough to feel right. Higher up, the trail crossed onto land that had not been maintained in years. Switchbacks had eroded and steepened. Darker rock had been exposed by weather and freeze cycles. Markers had been replaced inconsistently by volunteers, not following original spacing. The summit marker was not official. It was placed decades earlier by a local hiking group, marking a minor high point that was never recognized as a true summit. The plaque listed an estimated elevation based on old surveys, not modern measurements. The view felt wrong because it was not the summit my friend remembered. He had climbed a different mountain entirely, one nearby with a similar approach but a different final ridge. In fading light and mounting fatigue, our sense of direction warped. The sun appeared to set in the wrong place because the ridgeline we stood on faced a different angle than expected. The descent was faster because erosion had straightened the old switchbacks into steeper fall lines. Gravity did the rest. The trailhead sign had been replaced recently, listing the new trail name. The old one we saw when we arrived had been removed or covered by the time we returned, part of ongoing cleanup. Everything had an explanation. What stayed with me was how easily familiar turned unfamiliar, how confidence filled the gaps where caution should have been, how a place can exist on the edge of maps and memory, real but forgotten, still there for anyone who walks the wrong path at the right time. I still have the photo. I know where we were now, roughly. I know why I can't find that mountain listed the way I expect. But I also know how it felt to stand on a summit that did not belong to any story we thought we knew, watching a sun set in the wrong place, realizing too late that familiarity can be the most convincing lie of all. I went hiking because the world felt wrong that year. Everything had narrowed down to screens, walls, taped arrows on grocery store floors, and the constant sense that time had stalled. People stayed inside. Streets stayed quiet. The air felt heavy even when nothing was happening. I needed space and movement and something that did not feel controlled. I found the trail online late one night. It was listed as maintained, recently updated with photos from the past season. Fresh signage was mentioned. The map looked clean and clear. The comments talked about good footing and moderate grades. Nothing remote, nothing sketchy. That mattered to me at the time. I drove out early the next morning. The parking lot sat at the edge of a mixed forest, mostly pine and fir, with patches of younger growth where logging had happened years earlier. A new-looking sign stood at the trailhead. The paint was bright. The map behind the plastic cover looked untouched by sun. No warnings, no closures, no notes taped over anything. The trail started wide and firm. Packed dirt, trimmed edges, small drainage cuts. Someone had worked on it recently. That eased me. The forest felt quiet but not dead. Birds moved in the canopy. Wind pushed lightly through the higher branches. The smell of sap and dry soil sat in the air. I walked at a steady pace and let my thoughts thin out. The farther I went, the more the tension I carried started to loosen. My breathing settled. My shoulders dropped. The trail bent and dipped, crossed a dry creek bed, then climbed again. About halfway through, I noticed the change. Trees along the trail had been cut recently. Not old stumps, fresh ones, pale wood exposed, edges sharp and clean. The cuts were neat, done with care. The fallen trunks were stacked off to the side in tidy piles, limbs trimmed, ends lined up. There was no equipment anywhere. No chainsaw, no fuel cans, no caution tape, no signs posted to explain the work. It looked paused, not finished, like someone had stepped away and never come back. I stopped and listened. The forest held its breath. No engine noise, no voices, just the light wind and the faint creak of trees rubbing somewhere far off. I told myself it was normal. Maintenance crews move around. Tools get packed up. Work happens in stages. Still, the absence of any markers felt wrong. Even informal work usually came with some sign that people were meant to be there. I kept walking. That was when I first heard the dragging sound. It came from behind me, low and uneven, like wood scraping over dirt. Not steady enough to be wind, not sharp enough to be stone. A rough pull, then a pause, then another. I stopped. The sound stopped too. I waited a few seconds, then turned around slowly. The trail behind me lay empty. The cut trees sat still. No movement, no shifting shadows, nothing out of place. I turned forward and walked again. The dragging sound returned. It stayed just behind me, far enough back that I could not place it exactly. Each scrape sounded heavy, like something long being pulled end over end. My back tightened. My steps shortened. I turned again. Nothing. This pattern repeated. Walk, scrape, stop, silence. Turn, emptiness. My mind worked through explanations. Loose branches shifting, logs settling, my pack brushing something without me noticing. But the sound stayed too consistent and too close. Tracked my pace. It reacted to my stops. The trail narrowed as it climbed. The forest grew denser again. Sunlight broke through in thin lines. The dragging continued, sometimes softer, sometimes louder, depending on the ground. I focused on my breathing and kept my speed steady, refusing to run. Closer to the end of the trail, I noticed new cuts on trees near the path. These were different. They were not at the base. They were higher, around shoulder height. Some were angled. Some were straight across. The bark had been sliced cleanly, deep enough to expose wood, but not enough to fell the tree. Tools do not cut like that. Not at that height. Not without ladders or platforms. And there were no signs of either. The marks looked deliberate, measured, like someone had stood there and worked slowly, choosing where to cut. The dragging sound stopped somewhere behind me and did not return. I reached the end of the trail and stepped into the parking lot. Relief washed through me in a short, sharp wave. Open space, clear lines, no trees pressing close. That was when I saw my car. Long scratches ran down one side, starting near the rear door and stretching forward. The paint was scored deep enough to catch light. Thin lines crossed each other, uneven and rough. They had not been there when I arrived. I knew that. I had walked past that side of the car. I remembered the reflection of trees in the clean paint. The scratches sat too high to be from brush alone. They followed a line consistent with something being dragged along the side, moving slowly. I stood there longer than I should have, scanning the tree line. No one stepped out. No vehicles pulled in. The lot stayed empty and quiet. I drove home without stopping. That night, I went back to the Forest Service website. I pulled up the same page I had seen before. The layout had changed. The trail page now showed a closure notice in clear text. Closed for maintenance. 3 months. I checked the update history. The closure date predated my hike by weeks. The map I had seen before must have been cached or outdated. The sign at the trailhead had not been updated yet, or had been replaced without the notice. The explanation formed slowly, grounded and ugly. The maintenance work had started and then stopped. Crews had cleared sections and left. In the gap, someone else had moved in. Someone using the abandoned work area. Someone cutting trees by hand, quietly, at odd hours. Someone dragging logs away from the trail instead of hauling them with equipment, keeping noise low. The dragging I heard matched the effort of pulling trimmed wood over dirt. The higher cuts matched a person working without proper tools, cutting standing trees to harvest sections they could manage. The neat piles showed routine, familiarity, time spent there. The scratches on my car lined up with someone moving a log through the lot, misjudging space, or not caring if damage happened. I had not been followed by something unknown. I had walked through an active, illegal work site occupied by someone who did not want company and did not need to announce themselves. The trail was not maintained. It was abandoned. The world had felt wrong that year because the usual systems were strained and delayed. Signs went up late. Information lagged. Empty spaces stayed empty longer than they should have. I needed air, and I found a place where someone else was already using the quiet for their own purpose. We went hiking to celebrate finishing college. It felt earned, like a line we had crossed together. For years of late nights, bad food, shared stress, and shared pride. We wanted something that felt big but not serious. A day hike with views. A trail we had seen on social media. None of us treated it like a real mountain trip. We were dumb, confident, underprepared. There were 4 of us. I was the one who suggested the trail. I had done short hikes before and thought that counted for something. We packed light in the wrong ways. Not enough water. No real layers. No map, just a screenshot on my phone. We laughed about it while loading the car. The air was warm. The sky was clear. Everything looked forgiving. The trailhead sat quiet when we started. A wide path through trees, packed dirt, easy grades. We moved fast and talked with our hands. We joked about jobs and apartments and how strange it felt to be done with school. Our voices echoed between the trees. The world felt open. The climb started later than we expected. The trees thinned. The ground turned rocky. The trail narrowed and cut back on itself. The air grew cooler, sharper. Wind slipped through gaps in the rock and brushed our skin. By the time we crossed above the tree line, the afternoon had shifted. The sun still shone, but the warmth drained out of it. The sky stayed clear, almost too clear, stretched thin and pale. The wind picked up fast. It did not gust. It pushed, steady and firm, like a hand against your chest. It felt like pressure pushing down on us. The terrain opened into broken slopes of rock and gravel. No cover, no sound buffer. Every step scraped or slid. The trail markers were sparse. Cairns sat spaced out across the slope, some knocked over, some half-buried. We slowed down. Breathing grew heavier. Heads dipped. We spread out without noticing, each of us choosing footing and rhythm. The wind pressed at our ears and filled them with a low rush. That was when we heard the breathing. At first, I thought it was one of us. The sound came deep and slow, drawn out, like air pulled through a wide chest. It did not match any of our patterns. It was too steady, too heavy. Came again, longer this time, and then paused. The sound echoed off the rocks above us. It bounced around the slope, making it hard to place. I stopped walking. Gravel slid under my boots and settled. The breathing continued for one more cycle, then stopped. Nothing moved. No animals crossed the slope. No birds lifted. No shadows shifted against the rock. The open ground showed everything, and there was nothing there. The wind kept pressing, but the breathing did not return. I stood still, waiting. My heart beat faster, loud in my ears. I watched the ridge above us and the broken rocks below. The silence felt deliberate. When I took a step forward, the breathing came back. One long pull of air, a pause, another. It followed my movement exactly. When I stopped, it stopped. When I walked, it matched pace, staying just out of sync with my own breath. I looked around. The others had stopped too, spread across the slope. Their faces were tight, eyes wide. No one spoke. The wind tugged at our clothes and hummed across stone. We stood there longer than made sense. The sound did not rush us. It did not close distance. It stayed constant, like it had no need to hurry. My mind ran through explanations. Wind through cracks, air pressure shifting, an animal hidden behind rock. But the pattern stayed wrong. Too slow, too controlled, too responsive. The breathing stopped again when all of us froze. We started moving together, careful steps downhill, angling back toward where the trail should drop. The breathing returned immediately, now closer, louder, as if the sound had found a better path to carry. I could not see anything. That was worse than seeing something. My eyes searched every hollow and shadow. The open land offered no answers. One of us broke first. He dropped his pack and ran. The sound of it startled me more than the breathing. The thud of the pack hitting rock. The scrape of boots skidding downhill. Panic snapped through the rest of us like a wire pulled tight. We ran. There was no plan, no count, just movement away from the sound. My lungs burned fast. The air felt thin and dry. The slope pulled at my feet. Rocks rolled and clicked and slid under me. The breathing followed. It did not get louder. It did not fall behind. It stayed the same distance, steady and close enough to feel personal. It echoed now from multiple angles, bouncing off the terrain, making it sound like it was everywhere at once. At some point, I realized I was alone. I did not see the others. The slope curved and dropped. The ground cut into shallow gullies and rises. I focused on not falling. My vision narrowed to the next few steps. The breathing stayed with me until the land dipped sharply and the wind shifted. Then it faded, swallowed by the rush of air through a narrow cut. I kept running until my legs shook and my chest hurt. I slowed near a line of rocks that marked the edge of the trail below. Trees waited farther down, dark and still. I stopped there, bent over, gasping. One by one, the others appeared. They came from different directions. One from the left, scrambling over loose stone. One from straight below, climbing up a short rise. One from behind me, emerging from a shallow dip I had not noticed. We stared at each other, trying to make sense of it. We had all run in different directions. I knew that. I had watched at least one of them break away to the side. Yet here we were, together again within a few yards of the same trail marker. None of us heard the breathing anymore. The explanation came later, slowly, when fear loosened enough to allow thought. The wind above the tree line had been pushing through a network of rock fissures and shallow caves. The slope was honeycombed with spaces you could not see from the surface. As air pressure changed with our movement, it forced wind through those openings in long, low pulses. The sound carried and echoed, distorted by the rock faces. When we walked, we changed the pressure. When we stopped, it equalized. The breathing followed because we caused it. Our panic did the rest. The trail above the tree line followed a broad funnel. No matter which way we ran, the terrain guided us toward the same descent. The ridges curved inward. The gullies fed toward the same drop. We thought we were separating, but the mountain was shaping our paths the whole time. The dropped pack stayed where it fell. We retrieved it later, hands shaking, eyes always lifting to the ridgeline. We made it back below the trees before dusk. The wind eased. Sound returned in normal ways. Birds moved again. Our breathing slowed. None of us treated it as a story to tell. We did not laugh it off. We understood how close fear had come to turning bad decisions into real harm. Exposure, falls, getting lost above the tree line with no gear and fading light. Nothing chased us that day. Nothing hunted us. The mountain did not need to. None of us hike anymore.